Hello wonderful people out there, how you doing? So in today's video we're talking about lucrative animal farming that can be done at home, homestead farming. So if you're someone that is thinking of what to do to generate some income on the side, or you're thinking of an animal farming business that you can start up, this is the right video for you. Meanwhile, these animals all have their own advantages and disadvantages, and they are not to be read on close proximity to each other in case you want to do a mixed farming whereby you want to run different sets of animals together. So you need to read them a little bit far away from each other. So let's dive down into the essence of today's video. So number one on the list is poultry farming. Poultry farming is very diverse. There are so many things that can be done in a poultry farming business. Yes, there's different areas of poultry farming that you can harness to achieve maximum profit. And poultry farming is like one of the highest, they can give you one of the highest returns on investment. That is, you can definitely make sales of poultry products in anywhere in the world. Yes, in anywhere in the world, but not everywhere in the world that they can strive more better. In some areas, the weather tends to be more comfortable and better for poultry farming to triumph very well, especially in African countries. Most African countries, poultry farming will do amazingly well, especially for those of us that are staying within the rainforest region, East Africa, South Africa, and some parts of the North African countries. And even the Central African countries, they can also benefit from poultry farming. So let's dive down into the different parts of poultry farming that one can harness to achieve better results. So number one in the poultry farming sector that you can start up with very few numbers and little capital is the broiler poultry farming. Broiler poultry farming is something that you can dive into it with little funds, and you definitely succeed in it. And it's easy to start up. It's easy to start up. In this channel, I've talked about poultry farming for the past 2 years. Yes, I have different videos about broiler poultry farming. So I encourage you to check out my videos and get to learn more deep insight on how broiler poultry farming has been done. So broiler poultry farming is basically the farming for meat production. So these birds are sold off within the time frame of 5 to 8 weeks when they'll be sold out. Some people keep them longer than that. Some people keep them as long as 12 weeks. So depending on your market. So before you start any venture in the animal farming business, you need to first of all make your research about the market. Do you have the market to sell off these birds? Because in some rural setups, you cannot be able to sell broilers very well because most people cannot be able to afford it. And some people also rear chickens. Lots of people rear chickens at home in rural settings. So you need to make sure you do your market survey first of all before you start any of this animal farming venture. So like I said, poultry is diverse. Broiler is one of them. Then the next on the poultry sector that you can get started is the layers. Running a layers farm can be a bit expensive for the startup because the cost of buying point of lay or raising the birds from day old till when they start laying from about 18 weeks or 20 weeks or thereabout. So this might take you about 5 months before they start laying for you to start generating income. But when they start laying, you'll definitely be making profits like every day on a daily basis. And when it picks up, the profit margin sometimes can be a bit higher and the advantages can be a bit higher than that of the broilers, but it's quite expensive to set up. And it's something that can strive in basically any part of African communities because of the demand of eggs is increasing by the day, and it's a cheap source of protein that so many people want to tap into. And even people that do most of the snacks and other food staples also use eggs too for their own cooking and production. So egg laying is another sector that you can tap in. So another part of poultry that is not too common in most African communities is turkey. Turkeys are a bit expensive, but then they are mostly used during festive period. Yes, the demand for turkey is more during festive period, and it's basically for meat production. Rearing of ducks is also a thing in African communities. You can keep them for egg and for meat, and they are a bit stronger and easy to take care of compared to broilers and the layers. Then another one that is not common, that is very few communities that have them, is the goose. So goose is another one that people rear for meat and for egg, basically for meat. So these are the few poultry ideas that are common in African communities that you can tap into and get some funds on the side. So the next we'll be talking about is piggery. Piggery is one market that is yet to be tapped in most African communities. Meanwhile, in some parts of African communities, you might not be able to make funds from piggery. So that's why I always say you make your market visibility study first before you dive into every sector. Because if you're living in a Muslim community, there's every tendency that you will not, in fact, there's not, and if you're living in a Muslim community, you will not be able to make sales except you are packaging your products to go and sell it in a different location, which might be expensive for you. So that's why I say you make your research. If you stay in a community or an area whereby the demand for pork meat is there, dive into it, because piggery is a long-term investment from 1 year, 2 years, depending on how you get to start up your structure, your business structure. You're able to make some turnover, and it's not expensive to take care of, because there are some waste materials that humans do not consume that these things that you can use to supplement the feeding for them, like banana stems and some other things. You can use these things. They are not totally waste for say, but there are some things around you that you can use to feed them, so which will make the feeding cost a bit lesser compared to if you're doing poultry. Because if you're doing poultry, basically you are buying all the feeding for them. But in piggery, sometimes you can supplement with these other things, but definitely you will definitely need to buy feed for them if you want them to grow very well, faster, for you to achieve better results. So first of all, you do your due research, find out to know if the community you reside in, people get to buy pork meat. Then if you see that the market is there, you go into it. It's an investment that you can be doing other things and still have piggery. It don't demand much of your time, and before you know it, if you start off with 5, before you know it, in 2 years time you have about 30 or even more, because they produce a lot. Yes, they produce a lot. So in the coming weeks, I'll be doing some series about piggery, because it's one area that I know that a lot of people need to harness. There's some profit returns in piggery. So it's something that someone can just start as simple as even 2 or 1, just start growing it gradually. Before you know it, you have so much pigs in your backyard. So the next we'll be talking about is goats. Goat meat is a kind of meat that is consumed by almost every part of Africa. We Africans love goat meat a lot. Yes, we love goat meat. The taste, the aroma of goat meat is something that is very enticing. So I wouldn't just say judge, because I've seen a video where a community didn't want someone to raise goats. They said it was a taboo for them, but there are just few communities with those exemptions. But most African communities consume goat meat. So goat farming is one area that people can dive into and enjoy the benefit of it. And there are different breeds of goats out there. So you do your basic research about it and dive into it. And goats is something that the feeding is quite cheaper. It's even cheaper than piggery, cheaper than poultry, because you can get grasses and some other supplements to supplement for them. The only time I stress a little bit is taking care of their health status, because sometimes once in a while they do come down on 1 or 2 illness, that needs some vaccination and some treatment. But the caring they need is not as much as compared to piggery and poultry. So with less attention, these guys will do amazingly well. So goats is another area that people need to dive into it and they will definitely make profit. You have it in any part of Africa, you are sure of making sales. The demand for goat meat is increasing by the day. And there's another part of goat farming that people are now tapping into is about the milk. Yes, goat milk is the demand for goat milk is rising because not everybody's system can sit very well with cow milk, especially for some adults. Adult people, they tend to avoid cow milk and want to harness and want to take goat milk because goat milk tends to be much better for their own system. So goat milk business is something that people are tapping into it and they are making profit from it. It's something that you can be generating profit from it on a weekly, on a day, or a daily basis, depending on your market and the quantity of goods you have in your head. So the next on the line is sheep. Sheep is raised basically for meat production and for the wool. But wool production is not that common in Africa because we do not have that strong winter in most part of Africa that the demand for wool will be that high. But I know in the European countries and in the America, they have cool regions there, so the demand for wool is high, and one major source of wool is from sheep. So, but aside from the mutton, that's the meat of the sheep, lambs are very delicious delicacies that people enjoy lots. Yes, so the demand for sheep is something that is rising, and our Muslim communities, they like ram a lot, especially for their festive celebration. So the reign of sheep is something that will give you much return on investment and is very much easy to take care of compared to goats, poultry, and piggery. So they are very much easy to take care of. You just keep them on the open field where they can graze on grasses and they will be fine. Yes, they will be fine. So these things are one area that we Africans need to begin to tap into and make profits from them. Sheep. Yes, you can make money from the lambs and also make money from the sheep, the grown-up, sheep. So these are wonderful source of generating income on the side. If you have some space in your backyard where you can have, or you have a place where you can take them out for grazing. Like when I do go to my mom's village, I do see some people, some families raise sheep, and they will just use a peg and peg them with a rope attached to these sheep, and they will just be there throughout the day. Then later in the evening, they will just take them home, or whenever it's raining, they take them home, and when the sun is up, they bring them out there in the open field, just pin them, tie them rope to it, a peg that they'll pin on the floor, so that to give them those restrictions, so that they don't go too far or go into someone's farm to destroy. So they're easy to maintain animals that you can just keep them on the open field for them to graze, and you take them home at night. Easy to take care of. They don't come down on illness compared to goats or pigs or poultry beds. So the next on the line is cow. Cows are very expensive, are big, large animals, but they are quite easy to take care of if you know how to handle large animals. Cows are cheap and easy to take care of because you just keep them on the open field just like the sheep, and they do very well. Or you can cut grasses and bring to them in your stead. Yes, you can cut those grasses and bring to them. So there are two basic ways of generating money from raising cows. You can raise them for milk purpose, as the female ones, they get to produce milk and you will sell them to your communities within, or some companies will come to buy the milk from you for them to go and refine to use them for packaged milks. So there are different breeds of cow out there. So you do your research before you start investing in it because it's quite expensive to invest in. But on a long time, it's going to generate some large income from it. It's a long-term investment, meanwhile. So put that into consideration. Do your due diligence research before you start out. And be sure that your community you reside is a community that is friendly and there's security, and you make sure you take care of them, because I do not support open grazing for cows. So if you're going to be setting up a cow ranch, you need to be sure that you have enough space at your backyard for you to keep them and take care of them. These are animals that can be kept in a ranch, or you keep them in a closed space and always cut for grasses and hays for them to be available for their own feeding and consumption. So these are animals that one can raise on the backyard if you have enough space at your backyard to raise them. Yes, you can have 2 to 5 cows that are milking for you. You know, you set up a better housing structure and you cut the grasses and hays for them to feed on. And once in a while, you have to treat them for deworming and some other illness that might come close to them. So the next on our list is rabbit farming. Rabbit farming is an area that needs people to invest in it. Although the returns on investment is quite low. When I say it's low, in the sense that the time frame it takes these animals to get to maturity, and the market for it is not in high demand right now. It's an area that people are beginning to try to discover it gradually. So you be sure that you have a market for rabbits in your area that you can sell and generate income. In the European countries, the wool from rabbits are also used for coats and other stuffs that involves wool. So, but basically in African communities, rabbits are reared for the meat consumption. It contains a very high level of protein. It contains very high level of protein, and it's something you can just do at your backyard with a small cage of, 2 by 4, with a height rate of over 6 feet. You just have like 3 steps. So with a small space, with a small little space, you can start rabbit farm, and before you know it, you have rabbits everywhere, and you can be selling and making massive profits. And these things feed on basically waste. There's some waste materials, waste food stuff, and even some plants. You can just cut the leaves and give to them. So you do your due diligence on how to raise rabbits. There are so many videos on how to raise rabbits on this platform, so on YouTube. So there are so many videos you can watch and get to learn from them. So the last on our list is a farm animal that is not commonly consumed in some communities in Africa, but it's something that one can start on the side. In fact, a year ago, I started something, an experiment, and somehow it worked, but I didn't have the time to check and follow it up on it. So that is snail farming. Snail farming, yes, is something that can be done at your backyard with just little containers. There are some videos you can just watch online and get to see how these snails grow for better results. You can raise them, pick them from the bush. You don't need to buy them, and what you're doing to take care of them, you're not spending any money to do. In fact, you can just go to the bush around you, pick them, especially when the rainy season is coming. Pick those things and raise them at home. Use leaves. In fact, there are different ways of taking care of them. You just watch some videos. It's quite easy. You don't spend anything. The only money you get to spend is setting up the housing structure for them. That is when you want to do an expensive system. But if you have some old rubbers, there's a way you can walk around it and use those old rubbers. You're not spending money, but the returns on investment is quite low, and they're quite selective. Some areas that do not consume snails, so you just be conscious of all those things. That's why I always say, do your market research before you venture into any area of business. So for the benefit of those that will be watching this video till this very end, I will be adding fish farming. Fish farming is something that is thriving in every part of Africa, because every part of Africa consumes fish. So the reign of catfish, tilapia fish, and other types of fish, whoa, man, is something that is making people rich. It's expensive to set up. The cost of taking care of fish is a bit expensive. Almost seem like running a layers farm, because these fish take about 5 to 6 months before they get to full maturity. We can even start selling them even at 3 weeks. Can even start selling them even at 3 months. So depending on the kind of market you have around your area, and it's better when you dry them or sell them directly to the direct consumers, you make more mega profits. Yes, but it's in high demand in every part of Africa, because I know almost every part of African communities do eat fish. So fish farming is something that can be harnessed and done in any part of Africa, in as much as you have access to water, regular water, and you raise them for the consumption, final consumption as fish. And there are some people that also do hashing of this fish. Yes, the hashing of this fish, you just need that regular flow of water. Even if your space is not too big, you can be hashing the little fish and selling them to other fish farmers too as well. So fish farming is a sector that needs to be harnessed in African communities, and people can make massive money from it. Most times you make more profit if you have a farm close to a major urban settlement. So where people can be able to afford to buy them. Yes, because in some rural communities, some people might not be able to afford to buy catfish and all these other fish raised at home. So I hope with these ideas you can be able to try something out before the end of the year. Yes, you can. Start with whatever you have. Make sure you do your research. If it's to start with one pig, you start with that. Before you know they start growing. If it's to start with one female goat, you start with that. Start with what you have. Do not wait till when you have all the money in this world. But the main thing you need is the knowledge, insights about how that particular sector works. And if you have the market for it, you just get started. Now is the best time for you to get started. Get started. Before you know it, your farm will grow big and get into a commercial farm level that you'll be making some massive money from it. So thanks for watching this video, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.